After a deadly crash at St. David's North Austin Medical Center last year, KXAN reveals the hospital system funded a last-minute push to stop a safety measure it opposed aimed at preventing another disaster. It involves a behind-the-scenes lobbying effort, not unusual if you're an insider at Austin City Hall, but for people who might not know how money, access, and influence can impact decisions there, KXAN investigator Matt Grant lays out evidence rarely seen by the public.
Mr. Whalen, Matt Grant with KXAN.
Chances are you've never heard of Michael Whalen, but this Austin attorney and lobbyist has the ear of many elected officials in town.
Michael Whalen on behalf of the applicant.
Whalen's website touts his ability to obtain policy changes before the city council, and business interests are willing to pay. Public disclosure forms show he makes up to $10,000 every quarter from a Rolodex of big-name clients each, like South by Southwest, Circuit of the Americas, Shell, Expedia, and St. David's Healthcare. The same hospital system where a drunk driver crashed into its North Austin ER last year, killing herself and injuring 5. There were no safety barriers at the entrance at the time. That incident and our research sparked a city ordinance requiring security bollards at new medical facilities.
The public hearing is open.
But when the proposal came up for a final vote in December, Whalen didn't offer public comment like everyone else. Instead, he raised concerns privately and directly to council members Zoe Kadri and Paige Ellis as they sat on the dais. In the 12 minutes before the vote, public records show Whalen texted Ellis, broadening the policy to include libraries and child care would be crazy, calling Austin a fortified city. Good grief, feels like we need to breathe on this one. He texted Kadri the ordinance wasn't narrow enough, a problem, and even called Kadri's policy advisor directly before this motion.
I'm pushing to postpone this item.
After speaking to Whalen, Kadri's advisor relayed a flurry of talking points to the council member, like what the measure means for renovations and rebuilds, a line Kadri repeated.
I think for me and some folks I've talked to, I think it's about, we don't know what it necessarily means for renovations and rebuilds.
While this behind-the-scenes lobbying is legal, do you feel like it's ethical?
No, we don't.
Adrian Shelley is director of the consumer watchdog group Public Citizen in Austin. He says generally it's a concern if special interest groups are getting special access to policymakers during a vote away from the public eye.
It's a blow to transparency, right? And it frustrates the ability of the public to participate meaningfully in the process.
After Kadri's attempt to postpone the Bollard vote failed, Whalen texted him and his advisor, "Thanks for trying," calling it terrible policy. An email we obtained from a source shows he then reported back to the CEO of St. David's and other hospital officials, telling them, despite an attempt by Councilmember Kadri to postpone, at my request, the Bollard ordinance passed.
We want to get your side.
After 2 months of our requests for interviews with Whalen went nowhere, we met up with him recently at City Hall.
Did St. David's direct you to stop the hospital Bollard ordinance vote? You told St. David's leadership that you requested Councilmember Kadri postpone the vote. What did you mean by that?
At the time of the vote, publicly, St. David said it was neutral. But after we told them what we found, a spokesperson now admits it opposed the Bollard ordinance, calling it rushed, incomplete, and selectively targeting healthcare facilities based on the deadly crash at its ER. The hospital system says it spent $500,000 last year installing additional bollards before the vote, though it has repeatedly failed to answer whether those barriers are crash-rated, something the new ordinance requires.
What did you mean when you texted Councilmember Ellis during the meeting that expanding the ordinance would create a fortified city and we need to breathe on this one?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
We have the text messages right here.
Ellis didn't respond to Whalen's text and voted for the measure, telling us it's not uncommon to hear from lobbyists, but council members have to make the decisions that best serve the public.
With this one being so narrowly tailored, I think there's no reason why we can't move forward today.
St. David says as it expands and builds new facilities, it works with a land use and entitlement attorney on construction projects. After our meeting, Whalen sent us a nearly identical statement, confirming he's represented the hospital system in all construction matters since 2010. How much influence did he have on your decision to try to block the vote on the ordinance?
Absolutely none.
Councilmember Kadri defended his motion to postpone a vote, insisting St. David's surrogate had no sway. Instead, his decision was based on outreach from the city's planning commission.
I'm trying to understand the scope of the problem for the existing medical facilities.
So it is accurate to say that Waylon had reached out to our office about a postponement, but he wasn't the person carrying the water. He was one of many voices that had reached out.
So was your motion to postpone because he asked you or requested you do it?
It was going to come. That's something that I was going to bring forward regardless.
Kadri says his motion was not intended to kill a measure he ultimately supports. Rather, it was to keep working on it.
Once we realized we couldn't get it delayed, I wanted the item to pass. I didn't want to be a hindrance or vote against something that's still very much needed, right? We saw what happened in North Austin.
Another reason St. David said it opposed the bollard requirement is because it passed without the necessary industry input. But public records show St. David's was actually part of a stakeholder group that included Baylor Scott & White, Ally Medical, Ascension, and Texas Children's Hospital. The group met last September to give input on the ordinance 3 months before it went to a council vote. St. David's representative at that meeting was Michael Whalen. At City Hall, Matt Grant, KXAN Investigates.
Matt, thank you. Records show in December, Whalen communicated with almost every council member or staff about various topics. Online now, we have a link where you can track Austin's lobbyists. Just look for it in this story in the investigative section of KXAN.com.